Great. Welcome everybody, and it's a great pleasure for me to introduce my friend Professor Nicolas Mathevon. Nicolas is a director of a laboratory on sensation and neuropathology at the University of Saint-Etienne, which is a joint university with Lyon. I think he might tell you a little bit more about how French university organizes. He did his PhD with Jean-Claude Bremont and Thierry Aubin at University of Paris. You might know them because if you saw the March of the Emperor, they're the two scientists who figure out how the emperor penguin recognizes each other, so which is really quite interesting. Nicolas has been working in animal communication his entire career. He's touched on many issues of animal communication, so he has this kind of multifaceted research that include individual recognition, the evolution of signals to be optimized in different ecological settings, the evolution of communication in general, and he's taken this kind of, as I say, multifaceted approach, and also a comparative approach, because he studied this, of course, in birds, but also in crocodiles, and in mammals, in pinnipeds, as well as hyenas, and I'm probably forgetting a lot of them, but if you look at his list of publications, you'll see that he's actually studied this in many animals. He's published in Nature Communication, and has done really some phenomenal work. So if you didn't know him before, I really encourage you to kind of check out his publication list and all the great work that he's done, because today he's only going to be able to tell us a very small part of all the stuff that he works on. And he chose to tell us about his work on elephant seals, because this is the reason that he comes to California almost every year to study the vocal communication in elephant seals. So, without further ado, welcome Nicolas.
Thank you very much. First, I want to apologize for my English, for my French accent and my English, so if you don't understand me, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. So far, so good. Okay. So I won't tell you anything about the organization of French universities because I don't understand how they are. So, yes, I'm running a lab, as Frédéric told you, in Saint-Etienne, which is the NS lab, and the central question of all our work is how do animals communicate? So, as you may know for sure, it's a central question in ethology. And all the fathers of ethology, they have worked at least for part of their life on this question. And even Darwin, it was a central question for him. So in our lab, we are working on a bunch of different topics and models. So actually I hesitated between elephant seals and crocodiles, because I know that a lot of people loves about hearing about crocodiles, but so just to show you where is Saint-Etienne, it's between Bourgogne and Côte-du-Rhône. So if you love wines, so it's really so I hesitated between crocodiles and elephant seals, and I decided to do it local. So as Frédéric told you, I used to come every year in California to work on elephant seals. It's weird because it should be, we should have some sounds there. So, it works. Sorry, it worked 5 minutes ago.
Okay, now
okay, we'll see. This one is not so important. So this is really a collaborative work. I'm working with those three women. Actually, I'm not working, as you can see. They are working. Sorry for this picture. And so Caroline Cazet, Actually, I stole most of the slides from her talk. And Isabelle Charrier, who has been my first PhD student in France, who is at the CNRS now, and Colin Rechmus, who is running a very nice and cool lab at UC Santa Cruz on sensory biology of marine mammals. And so some years ago, we decided to work together on this animal, the northern elephant seal. So you may know this animal because you can find it on the western coast of California. This animal was almost extinct 100 years ago, and now the populations are growing up, increasing by 3 to 4% per year, and it breeds at 12 sites along the coast of Mexico and southern California. And just a few words about the general biology of this animal. So actually it's a marine mammal for sure, so it spends most of the time in the Pacific, here in this Pacific area, and for breeding it comes to and makes some breeding colonies on the coast of Western America. The males arrive at the end of November on the beaches. For instance, you have this nice Año Nuevo Reserve. I don't know if you know it, on the south of San Francisco. It's where we do most of our work. And so the males arrive at the end of November and stay during several months on the beach without drinking, without eating. They lose 30% of their weight, so it's very a stressful period. And then after that they go away to the sea. And the females arrive a little bit later, around December, and then they give birth, and after that you have the copulation and etc. And then they go away to the sea. Okay. So today we will talk only about males. We have also a female program, but for the moment it's quite new, so we started working with males. When you arrive on the colony, you see this kind of organization. So it's a little bit messy, but actually it's more organized than it appears at first glance. So you have these big guys who are the males, and the smaller individuals are the females, and the black ones are the pups. Okay? So the males have a strong hierarchy, social hierarchy. So you have the alpha males, who are very aggressive individuals, and so they defend harems of females, and beta males who are there, and also peripheral males. So the peripheral males, I won't talk a lot about them because actually they never have access to females. They always are repelled by the other males. The beta males, they can have access to females. So they struggle between them to have access to females. Okay, so that's the size of a harem. It's approximative, of course. Okay, so when you are at this colony, from time to time you can observe this kind of event. So you see these males. So of course it's the speed is slowed down. And this is a National Geographic video that National Geographic came to Año Nuevo with us and made this movie. And so you see these very big fights that are extremely dangerous for those animals. And sometimes one of the two animals will even die, so it's really dangerous. They expend a lot of energy doing these fights. It's extremely costly. And actually these kind of events are quite rare. You don't observe them so much. What you observe most often, it's more things like this. Yeah, so we don't have sound. So this animal is calling, quack, cluck, 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 like this. And you see this one moving away, okay? So no fight, just an acoustic communication, a transfer of information between the first individual and the other one. And so the first time we arrived on this beach and we observed this kind of scene, we really asked ourselves, what is the information that is transferred from the calling individual to the other one that makes the second one moving away? Maybe the first one is signaling its strength, or its willing to fight, or its body size, or whatever. Or maybe it's another thing. It could be also its individual identity or something like this. So we decided to explore the function and the development of the male elephant seal vocal display, and that will be the subject of my talk. So first, the function. So information coding in the elephant seal call. What is the information that is coded in this course? It's a pity that we cannot hear them. That's correct. You cannot do anything about that.
I think the sound was working when you were not in presentation mode. I wonder if it's switched to, is that possible? That I don't know if we tried it with...
We can try it. You just try. Non, c'est pas ça, c'est un chef tout à l'heure.
As a speaker, it may be triggered, sent to the speaker on the projector.
Là, moi j'ai plein de trucs,
Si tu veux, sur le truc, et tu vas dessus. Look at preferences.
j'ai rien changé.
Attends, écoute, externe. Ça, vas-y, clique là-dessus. Voilà.
C'est ça.
It's always the reboot.
Non, c'est pas ça. Okay, so I think I will. Sorry for that, but I will have to do all the sounds for you. Okay. So the goal. So we will examine what kind of information is contained within the calls of adult male elephant seals, and we will investigate whether males perceive difference between these vocalizations, and what behavioral significance, if any, these calls have to listeners. So as I told you, we do most of our research at Agno Nuevo Reserve, and we did also some stuff at Piedras Blancas, which is another breeding colony of elephant seals a little bit southern. So just to show you a few pictures about the field work. So we have, the idea is to follow and to observe the behavior of these elephant seals throughout the breeding season, because we have to know the hierarchy between those individuals. We have to know them very well, and we have to know who is who on the beach, who is the winner. All the hierarchy we have to describe it very well. So all the animals are marked with different methods, and some of them are tagged also. And then all the interaction between the males are scored. So this requires a huge effort of fieldwork, because this means hours and hours of observation to observe all these interaction. And the typical interaction is as the one that you saw on the movie. So you have a winner that vocalizes, that does not move, and another one who moves away. Okay, and we use, I won't go into the details, but we used methods that are used to classify chess players, and this kind of methods, the ELO scores, I don't know if you know it, allows to classify individuals even if they don't fight each other, but you can have a global, hierarchy arising from the observation of interaction between two individuals. Okay. So then, after a few weeks, we have observed a lot of interactions, and then we have an image, a picture of the hierarchy of all these individuals. So we know who is stronger than who, to be sure. Of course, all the individuals that we want to test have to be recorded. So this is quite easy because you can approach these animals very, very close. So it's quite easy to record them. We also do some size assessment because one of the hypotheses was that body size could be coded in the calls, in some acoustic features of the elephant seal calls. And we did also some acoustic analysis. I won't go into details. So it's basically the call of the elephant seals is a series of pulses, cluck, 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 and you have some variation between individuals. So you have to describe actually a time series of pulses like this. Okay. So our first hypothesis, as I told you, was that maybe there could be honest cues in these calls. And we tested for that, so we recorded a lot of individuals, so each dot is one individual, and we assessed if some acoustic features could be linked to the size, the body size of the individual. And we found some bad correlations, I would say, but there is some correlation between, for instance, the pulse rate. So the bigger, the longer the body size, the bigger the individual, the faster the pulse rate. The number of pulses in the calls is a little bit higher when the size increases, and the what I would say the pitch of the call decreases with the size. So the biggest individuals have a lower pitch than the smaller ones. Okay, but as you see, there is a huge variability. Okay, but yeah, and so maybe these cues are used to assess the size of rivals. Well, the little problem is that we were not able to find any correlation between size and dominance. So you can have alpha individuals that are quite smaller, but extremely aggressive. Okay. And there is no correlation between acoustic cues and dominance. So, you know, situation was so-so. But nevertheless, we decided to test it. So how to test? You have to do playback experiments and to ask questions to animals. Because, you know, sound analysis is one thing, but if you want really to know if animals use the information that is coded in the signal, you have to ask them the question. So we did some playback experiments. We used calls from unknown males, so we moved to this second colony there, and we played back calls, and more precisely, so the playback design is very easy. We just put a big loudspeaker 7 meters away from an elephant seal. But the idea was to explore this correlation between, for instance, pulse rate and size, using not only natural calls, but also natural calls that have been modified artificially. And for instance, we used calls, so the same calls where we modified the pulse rates. So you take basically it's very simple. You take a call from an individual, clack, 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 and then you change the rhythm. So you can choose a rhythm of 1 hertz, so 1 call per second, clack, 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 and you test it, so you play back to some individuals and you see if you have a reaction and you measure it. And then you do the same kind of experiments on other individuals, but then with the same signal with an accelerated pulse rate. So the same pulse, so the same call but accelerated. So instead of 1 pulse per second, for instance, 3 pulse per second. Clack, 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 etc. Okay? So it's basically exactly the same calls, the same spectrum characteristics, exactly the same. The only thing that you change is the pulse rates. So then you ask the question, is the pulse rate important to you? Okay. And we did that with the other acoustic filters, so we increased the number of pulses, for instance. And we also, because it's very easy, you can do this by computer, we also modify the pitch, so to say, of the call. So you take the call and you increase a little bit the pitch, click, 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 or you decrease it, clock, 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 clock. Okay? And you test it. It was very boring actually, because we obtained no answers and no difference between all these signals. The elephant seals, basically we tested beta individuals, not alpha, because the alpha ones, they react to everything. So we tested beta individuals, and actually we did have almost no behavioral answer. So apparently FNCIL males do not use this kind of cues to assess their rivals. Okay, and so we decided to move to another hypothesis. Maybe there is an individual signature in the calls, and the elephant seals, they form a memory of their rivals. Because you know, this is one thing that I did not tell you, these animals, these males, they come back, they come again year after year on the same beach. Okay. So there is a probability that you have the same individuals each year on the same beach. So is there an individual signature in calls? And actually, it's very, very obvious that these calls are individualized. So with quite a simple acoustic analysis, where you measure only the pulse rate and the centroid of the frequency spectrum, so this gives an image of the pitch, I would say, of the call. It's very easy to separate the individuals. So for instance, this one, 9C, has a very slow rate and is quite high pitch. So it's click, 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 click. I exaggerate, but it's something like this. And this one has the same pitch, but very more rapid. Click, 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 click. And this one has a lower pitch, so it's click, 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 click. And what so of course we recorded the same individuals many times, okay, and it's extremely stable. The calls are extremely stable, and even us, after a few days on the beach, we were able to recognize individually the individuals. So for sure, the elephant seals can do that, but we had, of course, to test it. Okay. We also found that the acoustic signature, the individual signature, is very stable across contexts. It does mean that when two individuals interact very closely, so the stress is at its maximum, actually the signal, the calls, are not different than when the individual is calling almost alone. Okay, so it's very, very stable vocalization. And we also found that this vocalization is stable from a year to another one, because we were able to follow some of the individuals from a year to another one, and we recorded them, and actually, as you see here, this is the same individual over 2 years, and you clearly see that the calls are very, very similar. And here it's another individual over 2 years, and it's also very similar. So those individual signatures are extremely, extremely stable. So adult elephant seal males produce individually unique vocal signatures that do not vary between breeding seasons. So that's a good stuff. Yeah. But now you have to ask the animals, do you use this individual signature to recognize each other and to navigate in the social network on the beach? So it's exactly what we did, and I will tell you the results of this experiment in a few minutes, but actually you have to imagine that it takes ages to test these animals, because you really have to identify the good moment, the good situation. You have so many animals all over the beach, so to decide exactly the right moment to test it, it's not an easy work. So that's why we did not actually we did not test a lot of animals, but I mean a sufficient number to get our answer. So the idea, the basic idea of the experiment is the following. You take a mid-ranking male in your hierarchy, so that you can have recordings from stronger males and also lower ranking males, okay? And then you will do playback experiments to this male. One of the playback experiments will be to playback the calls of a dominant rival. So a dominant rival could be a male that had a fight with this one, okay, or not actually, but a male that in your hierarchy that you have built from your observations, you are sure that this dominant rival is really a dominant animal compared to this one. And you also do another playback on another day, and this time to the same individual, but this time it will be the call of a subordinate rival. Okay? And you expect that this one will retreat from the speaker when he will hear the voice of the dominant rival, and maybe he will approach the speaker in the other situation. Okay, so it's very, basic experiment. And I will just show you an example of results instead of statistics. So this is a male, this is the loudspeaker, and clack, clack, clack. Now the loudspeaker is, sending the playback, clack, 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 clack. And you see this, there is no other males over there. There's only the loudspeaker playing the sound. Clack, 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 clack. And you see that this very big guy is afraid of this sound, okay, clearly. And this is the voice of the dominant rival. And you can move it over a very long distance, okay, so he's very, very afraid. He don't want this dominant rival to be so close, okay, yeah. Now, the same guy, but the same guy here, the loudspeaker is here, and now the loudspeaker is emitting the voice of a subordinate rival. So it has already started. Clack, 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 clack. And you see that the response takes a longer time. Obviously, this animal is no more afraid, okay, of this playback. So the playback is still, playing. Clack, 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 clack. And at a point, this animal is moving. He's responding, so he's calling in response to the subordinate voice, and he's clearly approaching the loudspeaker. Okay, so he's attacking this subordinate rival. So at point, of course, probably he thinks that this one is the subordinate. Okay, so this poor one will be. But yeah, so he's actually destroying our loudspeaker. Okay, so this is the kind of clear behavioral answer that we obtain with this experiment. We did a control one where we moved to Piedras Blancas, and we played back calls from very high-ranked males of Año Nuevo and very low-ranked males of Año Nuevo to these males of Piedras Blancas. So these males probably they never heard the voices from Año Nuevo, okay? And this is the tested male, this is the loudspeaker, and it's exactly what I told you a few minutes ago. We obtain no behavioral answer. Actually, when when the voice is unfamiliar, you can see the tested male that moves his eyes, so he looks around, but he decides not to move, okay? Just to wait and see, we'll see. Maybe they are very, very cautious, okay? And so, if I summarize the situation, if I'm a beta male, if I recognize the caller, and I know that he's stronger than me, I flee quickly. If I recognize the caller and I know that I'm stronger than him, I attack him. And if I don't recognize the caller, I just wait and see. Okay, that's the beta strategy, I would say. We also tested some alpha males with the voices of familiar alpha, stranger adults, familiar beta adults, etc. We did a lot of experiments, and we especially pay attention to the distance between the loudspeaker and the alpha males. And we found that actually the alpha males, so the big ones, they attack whatever the opponent. It's just a question of distance. If you approach too close, less than 15 meters, they go to the loudspeaker and they attack everybody, okay? Because they think they are the boss. Always. So if I'm an alpha, I will react to the calls of everybody approaching too close, whatever his identity. Okay. So, with this sound analysis part and this experimental part, I think that we have the big picture actually of the acoustic communication of the elephant seal males. We did another thing. We asked the question. Which kind of cues, of acoustic cues, the elephant seal males use to recognize the individual identity within the calls. As I told you, when we did the acoustic analysis, we identified very easily that the timbre and especially the tempo, so the rhythm of the pulses, make the individual signature. But we wanted to test if those two key features were used by the males to identify their rivals. So we did again, another year, we did again some playback experiment where we used modified signals. So we used the natural calls, and we modified by accelerating or decelerating the tempo, and by also increasing or decreasing the pitch of the calls. And we used only calls from dominant rivals, because as you saw, the free reaction is more strong and it's more rapid than the other one. And we found actually, I will go a little bit quickly, we found actually that if you modify just a little bit, so by 10% actually, the rhythm of the initial call of the dominant rival, then the reaction, the behavioral reaction drops very, very abruptly. So you don't have to modify the rhythm a lot to lose, actually, to change the individual identity of the sender. Make sense? Yes? Okay. And we did the same with the pitch, and we obtained the same kind of Okay, so if I want to summarize this first part, the information coding in the elephant seal call. So adult males produce individually unique acoustic displays during the breeding season. These signals function to control the movements of familiar rivals with minimal cost of conflict. And as I told you, it does not appear, the calls do not appear to convey any resource holding potential or willingness to fight. It's only a matter of individual signature. Okay? So as a conclusion to this first part, males have to remember the identity of their familiar rivals based on call features associated with the outcome of previous interactions. Okay, now the second part. So behavioral, social, and vocal ontogeny of the male northern elephant seal. So this is a more, this is quite a recent stuff that we for the moment it's just submitted, but it's not already published. We told us, okay, so now we know that individual recognition is important for the adults, okay. But on the beach, you can see a lot of animals that are not adults, that are young, and that come year after year also to the beach. They don't have access to females, obviously, so we can wonder why do they come here, but and we ask us the question: what is the developmental process by which these young males provide and acquire information within their social environments? And how does their behavior change as a function of age? So our goals were to characterize the goal was to characterize the ontogeny of spatial, social, and communicative behavior among these male northern elephant seals. So we worked only at annual level. Just a few pictures to show you that it's quite easy to differentiate between the age classes of the elephant seals. So here you have a subadult, so the nose is not very well developed. It's a 4-year-old male. Here you have a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, which is SA4. This SA4, they can have access to female. Actually, at SA4, you have, it's the adult age that begins. And then you have the true adults that are 8-year-old and over. Okay. Okay. When you observe young individuals, you can observe the kind of scene, okay? So you don't have the sound, but they are calling. This one is calling. The calls are, they sound like adult calls, but they're not exactly. They are more irregular, you know. So they are more like cluck, 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 something like this, and they sound very variable. Okay, but the behavior, they clearly they look like the behavior of adults. Okay, you see that they are on a part of the colony where you don't have big males, because they fall there. Okay, so same kind of study. So we had to identify tag males across all age classes. So I have to say that Caroline did most of these works. She assessed also the space space utilization. So where the males were on the beach during all the breeding season, and comparing between all these age classes. We scored all the interactions also between males to evaluate the development of these social relationships. We did a lot of recordings across all age classes to assess the ontogeny, the development of the male calls. And here's the results. So this is the occupancy on the beach. So here, this is Agno Nuevo Reserve. So I think that you have about 1 kilometer from this end to this end, approximately. And this is an example, actually 4 examples of 4 different SA1 males. So you can see that SA1, they are not very mobile. So during the 3-4 months they stay on the colony. This individual will stay only on that zone, this one on that zone, etc. The SA2, they are much more mobile. Okay, look at that one, for instance, which moved a lot during his stay on the colony, and this one also. And what we observed is that when they grow up, they have a tendency to choose actually a specific area on the beach where they stay all over the breeding season, so during all the months. And it's clearly visible, for instance, in these adults. So look at this one, for instance. Probably it's an alpha male that did not move during the 3 or 4 months of his stay on the beach. Okay? So if we did some measurement of that, this is the time spent ashore. So clearly it increases with the age. And this is the home range, and it decreases with the age also. So when they mature, their home range decreases in size, and the time ashore increases. We also assess the changes in the male social network across age classes. Yes. So probably most of you are familiar with this kind of representation, but just in case, in the graphs I will show you just after, each dot represents one individual, and the edge is the lines that link individual represent interactions between the individuals. And we measure the centrality, which is the total number of social partners. Partners is not a very good word here, because it's not really partners, it's competitors. And nodal strength is the total number of times pairs of males interacted. This is the results for 1 year, 3 months of observation, and this is the whole network of all the age class. So it's a very big mess. So it's just to show you that we observe more than 1,300 dyadic interactions to get this network. Now, if we look at this network by age class, this is the network of SA1. So you see that there is not so much interaction actually. Okay, the network is not complex, and you have each individual interacts with a few others and not very often. When they grow up, the network complexifies a lot. And when you reach the adult age, now you have very complex networks where you have individuals that interact a lot between them and with a number of individuals. This one, the big one, is an alpha, of course. And so young males interact with fewer individuals and they avoid most of the males, and especially the older ones. The mature males exhibit greater connectivity to their competitors within the network. So we clearly see this change in the social network when the males grow up. And in terms of centrality, it increases with age and the nodal strength also. So actually, to summarize, we can say that young males have fewer social partners with whom they are less familiar, while older males compete with a greater number of rivals, and the strength of those associations is much stronger throughout the breeding season. Okay. That's for the social network. Now, if we have a look on the calls, so unfortunately I cannot play those calls, but what it appears on this oscillogram, this is the calls from the same individual. 3 calls taken at random from the same one. Even visually, you can see that you have a huge variation within the calls of this individual. And that's true. It's impossible for us, for instance, it was impossible to learn to recognize the voice of a young male because there is so much variation between the calls of young males. And it's still true with SA2, and it becomes, more stable when you approach the adult age. And after, for the SA4 and for the adults, then you have extremely stable calls, as I told you before. And this appears quite clearly. And now, what we did, of course, we did all the acoustic measurement, the measurement of all the acoustic features on these calls, and we search for the individual signature. Okay, and what appears is that actually for SA1 and SA2, so for the young ones, it's almost impossible to distinguish between the individuals on the basis of their call. Okay, because their calls are too much variable within an individual, and it's when they grow up that the individual signature appear. Okay, and it's very clear when you do a little bit of statistics and you want to try to classify these calls according to the identity of the emitter. And when you try to classify calls from adult or SA4, it's very easy to do it. But calls from young individuals, the classification is not so good. So yeah. So the individual identity is not here actually in the voice of the young males. Okay, I remember you that for the adults, the calls are not even stable during a season, but also across breeding seasons over several years. So, to summarize all this developmental study, we can say that over the course of a male's lifetime, individuals transition from high variability towards increased stability with respect to social behavior. Among older animals, restriction of fine-scale movement patterns creates a predictable social environment in which repeated interactions between group members can occur. And third point, the calls of males transition from being highly variable to highly stereotyped signature, individual signature, that differ, and the calls differ between individuals. So you see the big picture. At the beginning you have, these young animals that don't know each other, that don't make a very structured social network, and after, when they become adult, the social network becomes structured, and now everybody knows who is dominant, who is subordinate, etc. Make sense? Okay. And I mean, that's it. And I hope this talk clearly shows that to have quite a good picture of the function and the development of a communication behavior that supports a social life, we have to gather together different approaches: analysis of social networks, long-term observation of animal behaviors, analysis of sound recordings, and of course an experimental approach. And here we use a lot of playback experiments with natural and modified signals. And thank you. Yes.
What did you learn about interaction between the individuals from Año Nuevo and from the other colony? When they must meet in the ocean somewhere.
Actually, we don't know. We even don't know how many individuals can transfer from one colony to another one, because there is not so much marking. So it's from our experiments, what we just know, we know that all the individuals that we tested at Piedras Blancas, obviously they did not know the voices of Año Nuevo, but that's the only thing that we found. I don't know if it answers your question. But yes?
Yeah, I'm curious. So these animals have been there several decades now, say since their return from near extinction and so on.
Yes, yes.
And if you were to imagine, say, 1,000 years ago or 200 years ago or whatever, before the Europeans were destroying them so successfully, then their life was different, and you think you are getting a good view of what that long evolutionary period, which they are presumably designed for, are you getting a solid reading of that in your current studies?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. So there is another study that I did not participate to, but Caroline did, for instance, just to go in your way, I would say. In the 70s, the population of the elephant seals were very, very small, and a researcher from Santa Cruz, Bernay Leboeuf, did a lot of recordings of these elephant seals, and he even published this in Science. He found kind of dialects. He called these dialects because he recorded elephant seals at different colonies, different places. The colonies were very, very small, a few number of individuals, from from Southern California to Mexico. And he found that there was huge differences in the acoustic structure of the signals, of the calls, between all these very small colonies. And what Caroline did 3 or 4 years ago, she went again to exactly the same places, and she recorded again the elephant seals. She also came back to the old recordings, because they still have them at Santa Cruz, and she did again the acoustic analysis of the old recordings and of her recordings. And what she found that the dialects have totally disappeared, and now you can have the same kind of calls in all of these colonies. So what we can imagine, I'm not sure of that, but we can imagine that in the 70s, the genetic variability, the population was so small that between the colonies, maybe you have a genetic variability, and each colony, which was so small, has absolutely not genetic variability, but a little genetic variability between the colony, and then the calls were different between the colonies. And now the genetic variability of the colonies, of each colony, has increased because the number of the individuals have increased, etc. And now this genetic variability has increased, and also the variability of the calls have increased. And so now when you compare the different colonies, you have almost the same picture. So that's true that indeed, maybe if you come back to these colonies in 100 years, we won't find exactly the same results. It's just to show you that things are moving. Yeah. So I agree with you. This is the picture of 2020.
I think this is related, but having to do with calls being passed along from parent to child. Is there any indication of that, or does it seem to be mainly social within the dynamic group?
We don't know. We don't know. A lot of people would like to find co-learning in this species. Really, I don't know. You know, even in pinnipeds, we don't know. We know that there is some kind of plasticity in pinnipeds, vocal plasticity, but we don't know if they are able to learn anything. So, if it's your question, right? Yeah. So we really don't know. My impression is that everything is mostly governed by genetic, but I'm not sure of that. So maybe.
Do you know if they learn also of the hierarchical structures by observing other animals?
Yeah. This is something we love to test. You know, it's a challenge to test this, but I bet that yes. You know, you have to imagine that these males, they spend 100 of their times observing. Okay, so they have a brain like this. For me, it's obviously they know much more than what we think, and probably there is some eavesdropping, and they observe, you know, those two individuals fighting. We know that fish are able to do that, so probably elephant seals are. I love fish, it's not good.
In younger individuals, is there any way to predict who is going to be the alpha and who is going to be the beta?
Yeah, I think that we have the data, but we never tested this. Yeah, so we don't know. Yeah, but this is something that we want to explore. Yeah.
Kind of two interrelated questions. How long will the males, that once they become an alpha, if maybe that happens at year 8 or maybe it happens later, how long can they stay an alpha? How long do these alpha males live?
A few years.
And do they ever decide, like, things aren't really working out in this little colony, maybe I'm going to take my chances over here where maybe the males aren't as tough? Do they move, or do they stuck in one community?
From what I saw, so I went there a bunch of years, and from what I saw, when you are an alpha, you stay in the same place. And when you lose, so year after year, I want. But when you lose your place, actually, the alpha that we lost, we never saw them again. Even, you know, most of them, the big alphas. And we saw I observed only one time an alpha losing his rank during a breeding season. The hierarchy is very, very stable. At the beginning, you know, you have some fights, and the number of fights has 2 peaks actually, at the beginning of the season, and then when the female become in estrus. But it does not modify the most of the hierarchy. Maybe between the beta males, but the alpha, it's very stable. And most of the alpha, they keep their rank for several years. And after, for any reason, they lose it. But I'm not. Then most of the time they just disappear. I bet that being an alpha is extremely, extremely costly, and your life expectancy is not so huge. But yeah. Yes. Sorry.
I may have missed this, but did you try playbacks? The same individual to each other?
To the same,
yes.
So the voice of an individual to the same individual?
Yes.
No, we did not do that. I know that this has been done, for instance, in birds. There is a lot of people that did this kind of experiment. You know, I'm an ethologist, and I think that you have to ask questions that are relevant to the animal. And actually, when you play back the voice of the own voice of an animal, you are not in a natural setting, so to say, because everybody has heard his own voice played back by a recorder, and it really does not sound like when you are speaking. It sounds really different. So we did not we did not do that in the elephant seal, but many people did that in birds, for instance, and most of the time it sounds that if it looks like an unfamiliar individual. But yeah, I prefer not to ask this question because yes.
Is there hierarchy among females?
That's a very good question. So we are working on females, and you have huge individual differences between females. You have very aggressive ones, and you have very low individuals that are very poorly aggressive. So probably there is some hierarchy. Not in the sense of the males, because they don't compete for the same thing, but probably they can compete a little bit from space, because you have good places that you have to be on the beach compared to others, etc. But there is not a lot of knowledge about that. So
I was intrigued by when they're young, they're trying out lots of different calls. And I was wondering if the call that they settle on is influenced by the ones the other juveniles.
it's possible. It's related to the question of vocal plasticity, actually. So it's absolutely possible. We don't know anything about that. Yeah. I'm sorry, but when you do field work, you don't know a lot of things about your animals, actually. Yes.
When they're not in the breeding season, do you know how much interaction they have in the ocean?
That's another open question. From what I know, apparently they live quite alone in sea, but who knows? Who knows?
This is another kind of broader natural history question, but are they actively establishing new colonies as their population increases?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of information about that. How do they choose?
Yeah.
No, I don't have any serious answer to your question. So, yeah, sorry. Yes?
You mentioned that size doesn't really seem to correlate with dominance, but do you know how often they win fights during development? Is there any correlation with later dominance?
Sorry, I did not.
Do you know if how frequently they win fights during development affects their later dominance status in hierarchy?
Your question is during their development, where they fight and how.
If they win a lot when they're young, does that affect their ability to become alphas?
Ah, yes. Okay. So this is exactly the question that you asked, or I don't remember. It's actually, can we predict from what we observe at a young age, can we predict what will become the individual at an adult age? I think that we have the data, but we did not explore yet. So we are not able to answer to this question for the moment, but maybe we will be.
So like one last question?
Yes.
Do you know if the females move around the beach in the same way that the males do? I mean, have you tracked
when they are young?
Yeah.
Actually, the young individuals that come to the beach are mostly males, and the females they come at the adult age, and the females they don't move a lot during the breeding season. They stay exactly on the same place. You have to imagine that around Christmas, so it's very easy to remember, they will have their pup. And so the pup is not mobile, not so much. So the female will stay exactly on the same place.
All right.